more stimulus, and stimulus checks with the impending recession. I have all the details and exactly what you need to know right here in the video. Let's get into it and talk about what's going on. All right, now the economic picture is not looking so hot these days, as we've had some really soft economic data points come in recently over the last several months here, and this is painting a not such a good picture for the overall economy. Remember, you probably heard me say this before in other videos, or if this is your first time on the channel hearing this, it is all about the economy when it comes down to stimulus. Let me give you just a really quick example globally what's going on right now with some of the other countries. And again, I know this is not the United States in this example that I'm giving you, but just hear me out for a second, because some other countries are doing some massive stimulus right now. Look at China. They are approving trillions of Chinese yuan of stimulus to ramp up their economy before the end of the year. They're doing this. Why? The economy is not doing very good, and they're providing trillions of Chinese yuan to bump it up. I mean, it's literally the exact same thing. All countries across the globe literally do the exact same thing. When the economy enters into a major contraction, a recession, whatever you want to call it, a lot of people call it many different things, but when the economy is not doing very well, they print up all kinds of money, hundreds of billions or trillions of dollars, and they push it out in the form of all kinds of different stimulus programs, just like we saw a few years ago, back in early 2020, late 2020, early 2021. That whole situation, they passed and they approved about $6 trillion worth of stimulus that they provided and passed and printed up during that about a 1 year period of time. That's massive, right? That's a lot of money, $6 trillion. No wonder why we've had so much massive inflation and why we're still dealing with all that right now, and why we're likely going to be entering into another major recession as well very, very soon within the next handful of months here, simply because of the Federal Reserve jacking up interest rates aggressively here over the last couple of years, holding interest rates very high for nearly a year, and now slowly bringing those interest rates back down a little bit, but it's been contracting on the economy in a massive way. So here's what's really interesting. Obviously, here we are right at the very end of 2024. It's not that much longer until we roll over into 2025. Now, typically on these types of years, we typically see the recession come in the year after an election year. Well, obviously, 2024 is that time, so 2025 would be typically the time that we see the recession hit. Why? Well, there's a lot of manipulation, and again, I want to make this very clear. I'm not here making this a political video in any way, shape, or form, but rather, this is just how it usually works. I mean, look back in history, this happens all the time. But leading up to election years, a lot of times they maybe, juice the economy a little bit, push a little extra money into it, stimulate it a little bit, and really get the thing going to make it look like, wow, we've got this massive booming economy. And then the year after all this happens, then we come in and we kind of have this hangover effect where the economy is like, man, this is a bummer. I had too much and I'm not feeling too good now. And I'm just going to kind of hang out. I'm going to lay around and not do a whole lot because I'm not feeling great anymore, right? Kind of the same situation. So that is what I've been reading about. And again, what I have been looking at very closely as a lot of these economic data points. In fact, have you been seeing some of my videos recently where I've been talking about like the jobs reports, for example? Terrible. They've been absolutely terrible recently. This is not good. Generally, this time of year, usually kind of like mid-October, November for sure, maybe even early-ish December, we get into a lot of this hiring. A lot of companies out there are hiring seasonal workers and things like this to help during the holidays. We're just not seeing that this year. It is nuts to see what's happening right now. We are not seeing the massive boom in employment this time of year. That's very alarming for anybody that's watching the economy and looking at the big picture of all this. Why? Why are we not seeing this massive surge in hiring? And why are we not seeing all this retail spending? And why are we not seeing all these big companies and just retail as a whole doing very well right now? It's because the consumers are tapped out. We've been tapped out for a very long time. Well, guess what? When we're tapped out and we have no more money to spend other than just on the bare necessities and the essentials, that simply means that that's not good. That means a lot less money out in the economy, chasing goods and services, providing strong demand and holding price stability. In other words, keeping prices strong, and in other words, just keeping businesses keeping people employed. And that's not the situation we're seeing right now. We're seeing layoffs across the board. We're seeing payrolls cut dramatically across many different industries. huge store closures. Have you seen some of these store closures? This is nuts, right? I mean, we're seeing tons and tons, hundreds of thousands of stores in some locations cutting. I mean, just like closing stores, right? We had Walgreens announce 1,200 store closures in the next couple of years. What was it? 7-Eleven closing, what was it? 444 stores, I think it was. Very soon here as well. Wendy's closing 150 locations. What was it? Denny's closing, what is it, like 100 or something like that locations as well. They're closing a whole bunch of places. And again, the list goes on and on and on. I could sit here and rattle off a bunch. Big Lots closing all kinds of locations. All kinds of things like this are happening, right? We're seeing some of the different dollar stores out there that are really struggling. When you see dollar stores struggling, does that give you a little indication of what's going on with the overall economy and what's happening with the consumer? When we see dollar stores, when the economy's not doing good and people have no money, people go to dollar stores to try to make ends meet and to try to save some money and get the things that they need. When you see dollar stores struggling, that's not a good sign with the overall economy, right? So anyway, these are some of the things that are happening. But again, we got to look at the big global picture. And again, what I alluded to earlier, China, again, appropriating, approving, and printing up trillions of Chinese yuan to stimulate their economy. Again, why would they do such a thing if the global economy is doing so well? And again, I know China is not the United States. I get it. We're totally different countries, totally different things going on. But it does give us a little glimpse into, hey, gee, that looks a little interesting. Why would they be doing that? European countries, they're literally knocking on the door of a recession right now. Why? I mean, look at this. Volkswagen. I mean, that's huge right there. What's going on in Germany? I mean, recently we heard this not that long ago. What was it? Maybe a month? It's probably a month and a half ago now, I suppose. Maybe longer than that. I don't know. Kind of lose track of time a little bit. But Volkswagen, Germany, right? I mean, is that not a little bit alarming? What does that show for some of these European countries and their economies? Not a good sign, right? We're all kind of going through the same thing right now. A few years ago, all these countries out there printed hundreds of billions, trillions of dollars of their currency to prop up the economies when everything was closed down. Now, we're basically getting all this purged because all the central banks around the globe, again, fill in the blank with whatever central bank. Here in the United States, it's called the Federal Reserve, but in European countries, it's called the ECB. Things like this, okay? They basically all have a central bank. What it is, just like the Federal Reserve here in the United States. But basically, they raised interest rates. They held rates very, very high for an extended period of time, contracted the economy. And then what happens? When the economy goes down, they stimulate again. Same old song and dance. We've seen it happen so many times. And this next time around will not be an exception to the rule. It's going to be the same old thing that we've seen so many times here. By the way, I've seen down below in the comment section, not a ton, but I've seen a number of comments coming out saying, we'll never get stimulus checks again. I would never say never, okay? I wouldn't say that. Here's why. Stimulus checks are not a one-and-done thing. They've done stimulus checks multiple times in this country. In fact, I can think of 5. I can think of 5 stimulus checks just in the last 2.5 decades. So in the last 25 years. In the last 25 years, I can think of 5 stimulus checks that have gone out. Maybe even a 6th. There might even be a 6th one in there that actually gone out. But 5 for sure that have gone out to the people, okay? So stimulus checks are definitely not like one of these things that it's a once and done. Absolutely not. When we see another major recession come in, which according to what I've been reading on this, according to what I've been seeing, it could be happening here sometime by early to mid-ish 2025. We'll see what happens here and how the end of 2024 shapes up. But I mean, some people are already saying we're already in a recession right now. I don't really know. I don't really know about that. But if we're not in one already, we're getting super, super close to that. And again, remember this much as well. It all depends on how bad it really gets, okay? The analogy that I've used before in other videos is think of the economy like a patient, right? The patient goes to the doctor. Yo, doc, I'm not feeling so good. Can you give me a little hit of something, right? Doctor pulls out the syringe. Yoink. There you go. You got a little dose of something, right? But the patient comes, crawling into the office. Hey, doc, I'm not doing so good today. I can barely crawl into your office. Doc pulls out a huge syringe. Yoink, there you go. Got yourself a big dose, right? You get the analogy. It's kind of weird, but it's kind of the same thing. The economy is like the patient, right? When the economy's down on its hands and knees saying, please, somebody, help me up, help me do something, right? that's when we get a massive stimulus. That's when we get huge amounts of stimulus. So the worse off the patient is, otherwise known as the economy, the bigger the dose that we got to get of stimulus to get the thing back on its feet. Literally the same thing, right? I know it's kind of a weird analogy, but honestly, it's kind of a good analogy as well, because it paints a very clear picture of what the overall economy needs in these types of situations that we're basically entering into right now, right? And remember, you've heard me say before in other videos, it's all about employment, in my opinion. Employment, the jobs report, the non-farm payroll number that we get the first Friday of every month, in my opinion, happens to be possibly the most important economic data point because it gives us a broad picture of the overall economy. Anyway, we're getting there. We're getting there close. Hang tight, people. I know it's rough out there, but trust me, there will be the distribution of money at some point again. When? Unfortunately, I don't know that, but there will be. At some point, it's going to happen, and we're going to see the heydays, like what we saw a few years ago, 2020, 2021, the heydays of free money everywhere. It will happen again. I know it sounds like there's no way that could possibly happen. Oh, it will. It will. Just hang tight. It will happen again. And I'll certainly keep you posted on this. Anyway, hope this helps you to some degree. Again, please make sure to subscribe down below. Totally free to do so. Big subscribe button right down below the video. If you're new here or if you haven't done so yet, thank you. Really appreciate that. Like the video, thumbs up button down below. Feel free to share the video. Big share button right down below as well with your friends, family, social media. Otherwise, check out the well over 5,000 videos here on the channel in the video library. The popular videos I've hand selected for you down below in the description or the top of the comment section. And right now showing up on your screen as well. You'll see some videos there. Thanks again. Really appreciate you. Have a nice day. Happy holidays as always. Have a good one, and I'll catch you again later.